Welcome into the video, welcome into the channel. Hope everyone is doing well out there. And today's video is one that I've been very excited to do because I've wanted to do this video for a very long time, but until recently, I really didn't have an easy way to do this. Now that I have a completely unlocked full service menu here on my 42-inch LG C3, I get to actually do this video and do this testing that I wanted to do for a very long time. So let me kind of set the scene for you here if you're new to the channel. Like I mentioned, this is my 42-inch LG C3, which if you know anything about the LG C3, G3, and newer models, is that they came with a lockdown service menu, preventing you from getting to a part of the service menu that allowed you to go in and disable the settings that have to do with ASBL dimming on your display. Well, I did a recent video talking about a solution that I discovered that allowed me to unlock the full service menu and in turn get into that part of the menu and make changes where I saw fit. If you haven't had a chance to check out that video and to figure out what I actually did, I highly encourage you to go check out that video real quick. And then once you're done watching that and you're caught up, come back and watch this video. But okay, so here's what I'm going to be doing today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a picture mode on this display that's really going to drive the brightness on it. And I really want to test the display's software to not enable the dimming function that is so prevalent on these LG OLED displays. All right, so let's get the good old magic remote here. Let's go ahead and press and hold the settings button. And let's pick out a new picture mode here. And the very first one that jumps out at me is good old Vivid, okay? And oh my goodness, look at that. The image just jumps off the screen now. It's super bright. It looks ridiculous. If you're somebody who likes TVs in Vivid mode, I don't know how you do it. But anyway, I'm not gonna stop there. I really wanna test this display. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down to advanced settings. I'm gonna go into brightness. And as you can see here, pixel brightness, contrast, those two are already maxed out, okay? I'm gonna go down here to gamma, and I'm putting this baby up at 1.9. And I don't know if it translated on camera, but this thing is really driving some brightness now. So now that you see what picture mode I'm using, and I even cranked up the brightness a little more, now we can get the testing started. And let me give you a rundown of what I'm gonna be testing here. And I'm gonna do 5 tests here for you. And each one of these tests are gonna involve the 3 dimming settings that can be found within the hidden service menu. And these settings are TPC, GSR, and the third one that most people don't talk about is actually just called dimming. And I'll show you what all this looks like here before I start the test. And I'm gonna do 5 tests involving these 3 switches in varying combinations to find out what exactly each one of these actually does when it comes to the dimming. And for each test, I'm going to leave the display on a very bright, almost full screen image for 5 minutes apiece for each test. And what we'll do is we'll see what the display looks like at the beginning of the test. And then I'm gonna cut. I'm not gonna have you sit and wait with me. I'll cut right to the point where it's been 5 minutes. And hopefully you'll be able to see on camera the difference in brightness level between when I started the video and then when I cut back in. And that'll tell you right then and there if there was any strong dimming. But if it doesn't translate well on camera, I'll be sure to verbally tell you what I'm seeing in person as if I'm seeing any strong dimming or I'm not. So for test number 1, I'm gonna have TPC, GSR, and the dimming switch turned on. So to get into that now unlocked hidden service menu, I just take the remote here. I'm gonna hit the Start button. It's gonna ask me for the code 0413. And now, look at that beautiful thing. In the hidden service menu now, to most of you out there. But anyhow, I'm just gonna go ahead and stop on the number 4 real quick, because under System 1, I'm gonna head on over. You'll see this switch right here. This is the one that nobody really talks about. It's literally called dimming, okay? I'm gonna leave that one on. And the 2 that are talked about most when it comes to dimming on the LG OLED display is down here in number 12, and that's over here under TPC enable and GSR enable. You see I have them turned off. I'm actually gonna turn them both on right here on camera so that you know I've turned them both on. So now, as you've seen on camera, I have the dimming switch is on, TPC enable is on, and GSR enable is on. Next up, let's go ahead and get that full brightness image going and we'll start the testing. All right, here we go. I've got the image pulled up. You could see it's just the Google landing page. It's very bright white. It's very bright in person right now. I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer at 5 minutes and I'll check back in with you and we'll see how it looks in 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes and I probably don't need to tell you what you're looking at, but oh my goodness, the screen has dimmed down so much in just 5 minutes time sitting on this screen, which is a almost completely white screen panel, but it does have some static elements on it. So it pretty much has all the things that might draw out the ASBL dimming algorithm on this display. So test number 1 in the books. Now on to test number 2. Okay, for test number 2, we're gonna go back in the service menu and make some changes here. So in start, 0, 4, 1, 3. And note that dimming is still switched on. We're going to go back down here to number 12, and this time we're going to turn off TPC, but we're going to leave GSR on. So for those of you keeping track at home, this test will be for dimming on, TPC enable off, and GSR enable on. So let's go ahead and pull the image back up. All right, we have our bright screen image pulled back up, so I'm going to start the timer at 5 minutes and check in with you at that point. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, and as I look at this display after 5 minutes of sitting on this exact screen for that long, I can't see any discernible dimming really at all. If it's dimmed at all, it's a very small amount, and it's such a small amount that it wouldn't even really bother me if it is dimming. So that's test number 2 in the books. Now on to test number 3. Okay, for test number 3, I'm going to be testing with TPC on, GSR off, and dimming on. So I'll stop at number 4 so you can see that dimming is still turned on. I'm going to head back down here to number 12 and I'm going to go over to TPC enable and turn that back on. And let's go down to GSR enable, turn that off, and let's go ahead and get our bright image pulled back up. All right, have our bright image pulled up here. Again, that's going to be testing for TPC on, GSR off, and dimming on this time. So I'll check back in with you after 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes here, and looking at the display, there is definitely some dimming going on. I don't know that the dimming is as strong as it was for when I had TPC, GSR, and dimming switch turned on, but there's definitely some dimming going on here, so that concludes this test. So on to the next one. Okay, let's get back in the service menu and do our 4th test here. So let's do what we've been doing in start. 0, 4, 1, 3. As you can see, dimming is still on. Let's go down to number 12. And you'll see here that GSR enable is obviously still checked off. So for the next test, I'm actually going to leave GSR enable off, turn TPC enable back off, and leave dimming on. So for this test, it's going to be TPC off, GSR off, dimming on. So let's go ahead and get our bright image pulled back up on the screen. All right, we have our bright image pulled back up on the screen. Just as a reminder, this test is going to be with TPC off, GSR off, and the dimming switch turned on. So let's set the timer at 5 minutes and check in and see how it looks then. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, and looking at the screen, I can't really see any dimming at all. If there's any dimming at all, it's very small. It's such a small amount that it probably wouldn't even bother me either way. So there's our results for TPC off, GSR off, and dimming switch on. On to the 5th and final test. Okay, on to the grand finale here, and this is the one I'm probably most interested to see what happens. And for this test, I'm actually going to do this with the dimming switch off, and I'm going to turn TPC and GSR back on. So let's go back in there and do that now. In start. 0, 4, 1, 3. And let's go down to system 1. Let's turn off that dimming switch. Next, let's go back down to the number 12. And let's turn on TPC. Let's turn on GSR enable, and let's go ahead and get our bright screen pulled back up. All right, here we are back at the bright screen. We have the dimming switch turned off, and we have turned on TPC and GSR. So very curious to see how the dimming switch actually impacts this with both of the other two turned back on. So we're gonna set the timer at 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, and this test was for dimming switch turned off, TPC on, and GSR on. And my eyes perceptibly cannot see any dimming that's going on the screen. Maybe the camera picks some up, but I highly doubt it. But that concludes test number 5. So let's kind of do a summary of the results and see what conclusion we came to. Okay, the 5 tests are completed, and let's take a look at the results and see what kind of conclusions we can come to. The first test was with TPC on, GSR on, and dimming switch on, and as expected, there was heavy dimming going on. It was very noticeable in person, and I'm sure the camera is going to even bring it out even more, but I don't know how much it dimmed down the screen, but it was a crazy amount, the difference of the level of brightness at the start to finish. So pretty safe to say all those switches on are bad news if you cannot stand dimming. For test number 2, I did TPC off, GSR on, and dimming switch on. And for that particular test, if there was dimming, I couldn't really see it. So my answer would be there's no dimming going on. But if there is dimming going on, it's so subtle that I couldn't even tell. And if there's going to be dimming going on that I can't even really tell the difference in 5 minutes of sitting on a static screen, basically, I'm okay with that. For test number 3, I did TPC on, GSR off, and dimming switch turned on. And that test, I was able to see some dimming, although the dimming, at least to me, was not nearly as strong with that particular setup as opposed to all the switches being turned on. So for that particular setup, you're definitely going to have some dimming, but it may not be overly powerful, but I think it's still going to be distracting if you set your display up that way. And for test number 4, I did the one that most people who take the time to actually dig into their service menu and try and get rid of ASPL dimming, this is the setup you're typically going to do. But that's with TPC off, GSR off, and dimming switch turned on. And as expected, I couldn't see any dimming that had gone on in a 5-minute time period of sitting on a very bright screen with static logos and everything like that. I couldn't really see any dimming, and so that wasn't too surprising on my end. And for the 5th test, I had TPC on, GSR on, and the dimming switch turned off. And this is the one that I was looking forward to the most because my speculation is that dimming switch that's in its own subcategory there under System 1 might actually be the switch that turns off dimming entirely on the display, no matter how long it sits on a static window, no matter how much brightness you blast through it for 30 minutes, an hour, 10 hours. That switch might actually be one that disables ASBL and ABL, and there's just not going to be any dimming going on the display. Now, for those of you that got really excited hearing that and are jumping for joy and thinking, I'm just going to go in there and flip that switch off, I do want to tell you something that might change your decision on that, which is you can go in there and obviously turn that switch off and leave the other two alone, and that gets rid of dimming altogether. You can game without dimming. You can watch content without dimming. That's great. However, every time you turn off the display and turn it back on, LG's system will flip that switch back on. So this is why I don't think that's the actual solution moving forward, because LG, every time you turn off the display, LG is going to flip that switch back on. So just keep that in mind. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful or entertaining or anything like that. This is a video I've wanted to do for a very long time. I'm really happy I finally got a chance and an opportunity to do this video. I had a lot of fun doing it. I found the results pretty interesting because there's actually a scenario based on my testing that you don't have to turn off both TPC and GSR to have a dimming-free experience, or at least an experience where dimming is not going to be super distracting. However, my preferred mode moving forward is still going to be TPC off, GSR off, dimming switch on. That's what I'm going to stick with, but I'm curious, based on all the test results here, leave me some comments below. Based on what you saw in this video, if you had an opportunity to go into the service menu, guilt-free, warranty voiding free frame of mind, or if you just don't care about the warranty and you're going to do this no matter what, which one of those setups are you going to use on yours moving forward? Leave me a comment below. I'm curious. But as always, I appreciate you watching the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button. It really helps me out. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is your first video of mine that you're checking out, I appreciate you watching it. And if you enjoy this sort of content, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss my future uploads. But with all that being said, until the next one.